As a board member of the Farm and Natural Lands Trust, it is my obligation and pleasure to introduce to you our two speakers today, both of whom you should know pretty well. Our speakers will share with us the Trust's continuing efforts to preserve and steward some of York County's most beautiful landscapes. First up will be Sean Kenny. Sean has been the Executive Director of the Trust since 2008. Sean is a native of Phoenixville and a dual citizen of Ireland, who first came to York to attend York College, but stayed afterwards to work for the Chamber of Commerce and then the Trust. Since then, Sean has done a bunch of community work and should be a very familiar face around our community. After living in downtown York for over 12 years, Sean and his wife Laura moved to the country, where they and their two young children now live on a farm that had been preserved by the Farm and Natural Lands Trust. In his spare time, Sean mows his lawn. Of Sean's many changing faces, today we will hear from the clean-shaven one, the one that I like to think of as Sean the Younger, versus the bearded one, or Sean the Elder. Following Sean will be JT Hand. JT, of course, is the current president of the Farm and Natural Lands Trust. He's been the chief operating officer of the York Water Company since 2008, when he and his family moved to York after his 22 years of service in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Since then, JT has served on or led every single nonprofit board or committee in the York area, or at least it seems that way. He and his wife Kathy and their 4 now mostly grown children live in Spring Garden Township. JT has no spare time, but if he did, I'm sure he would enjoy spending it with his family. I present to you JT and Sean the Younger.
Thanks for having me. I'll start by saying that I have a fear of heights, and it doesn't extend to tall buildings. It extends to stages that are 2 feet tall. So if I seem a little nervous, that's why. JT and I met about 2 weeks ago to go over the presentation. And then I gave the presentation, no joke, last week to Country Meadows, and it worked the residents into such a frenzy. I had to change the whole thing because I don't want people leaving here crazy with a burger or heading right to the bar, so excited about land preservation. So I changed it, and there's no script, but I figured at this point I've been involved 10 years, I should be able to talk about it, and I'm going to talk through pictures because if you miss my beard, you can stare that way. There's a couple pictures that'll guide you along. I'm actually going to pull the mic off so I can be loud enough, because I was told I have to be plenty loud for people too, which oddly enough was a comment I got at Country Meadows too, believe it or not. I'm going to weave in and out of history and what we do and what we're doing and what we're going to do. So this is our Farm and Natural logo, Farm and Natural Lands Trust of York County. I've been told that the logo was ripped off another land preservation's logo in the early 90s, but we still haven't gotten any trademark infringement or anything, so we're sticking with it for now. So back in 1990, the York County Farmland Trust was started. Like many nonprofits, was a thought from our friend Louis Appel, who we were modeled after the Lancaster Farmland Trust, who happens to be #1 in the country in land preservation. Last week preserved their 500th farm. A few years later, the first 5 years, we were our board chair was Stan Brown, if you remember Stan as well. Some of the real leaders of agriculture and nonprofits in York. 5 years later, they figured York County Farmland Trust as a name was not complicated enough, and then they changed it to Farm and Natural Lands Trust of York County. The main reason being, different from Lancaster, we have a lot more waterways, a lot more wooded areas that need protection too. Lancaster has a lot more smaller farms that are strictly agriculture, so they have 2 organizations where we have 1. So if you take our name and you throw it down, you get our mission of preserving agricultural and environmentally sensitive lands for future generations to enjoy. So I led with this slide. I did presentations when I first started for about 2 years, almost every week in a different township, in a different area. I've been to the Delta Senior Center a couple times. How many? Okay. But we had this slide that said, why do we preserve? And it was kind of to start the presentation, and we would ask this, and it would just stay quiet. But then very last presentation, an old guy up the front said, "'Cause they ain't making no more." And that's the truth. If you know anything about building on land, you know, one of the first things that goes is all the topsoil. And then it's hard to reclaim the land back to the way it was. It's very expensive. So we preserve land because they're not making any more around here. And we want to give some of these guys in the front of home too. So you're looking at half the staff right now, Farm and Natural Lands Trust up here. We're a staff of 2. If you rank us statewide, we are #1 in acres per staff person preserved, and very proud of that fact. That's if you count some of the really small organizations, but like I said, we're modeled off of Lancaster. There are land trusts in every county in Pennsylvania, and a lot of the East Coast and all over the country too, so we didn't just make this up. We have a board of directors too, and many of them are here. I think they're on one of the next slides, and then we have a bunch of committees, so if you have time, like JT, you want to sit on every board, you're welcome to come and join us and learn about us. We do special events and things that I'll talk about as we go. There's newsletters on the table. You can find my contact on the Rotary website too. So here's our board, and I have a couple board members here if you want to stand and be recognized. JT, our board chair, our board table over here. And just so you're not confused, you don't have to be a male, and you don't have to be an accountant or a financial guy or an engineer or anything like that. But that does help, but we have plenty of females too. And I'd be remiss if I forget the pride of Brogue, Pennsylvania, Mr. Tim Butt from CGA is our general counsel. And really, he lives on a preserve farm and knows a lot about what we do too. So thanks for letting me embarrass you guys. How we're funded. We are a tried and true nonprofit. We're trying to break even every year. So we have memberships. Our members are typically on an acre or less of ground that are supporters of ours. They believe in what we do. We have sponsors as well for our events. We get some money from the County of York that we actually don't take ourselves. We pay landowners with, and we get some grants from local foundations and things like that. So who do we work with? Landowners, obviously. Importantly, estate planners, attorneys, accountants, planning commissions, municipalities. There's another group in York called the York County Agricultural Land Preservation Board that is a state-run, county-run land preservation organization. Strictly agriculture, a little bit different, and if I spent any more time on that, we'd be at the end of our time allotment because there's a lot to it. So, citizens in their communities who love the outdoors too. And these are all the reasons, or some of the reasons I should say, of why we're around. You know, and I'll go through these in the slide and kind of tie it all together. But, you know, once you've been all over the country, you know, every town starts to look the same a little bit. So the one thing that can kind of make us unique are some of these pictures and views and things like that. So here we go into pictures. Taking you way back to 2008. How many remember that? Okay, like 2 of you. So that's when I started with the organization. That's when JT came to York. That's when Tom graduated high school. So we do land preservation. Up until that point, we had about 8,000 acres preserved. We're now around close to 11,000 acres preserved, and these are some of the properties which I'll go through. This is Rambo Run, if you're familiar with that. Jim May, who's here, helped us preserve that property. About 200 acres, all wooded, flows into Muddy Creek. That kind of ties into our work, you know, adding the natural name in. We go for a lot of wooded properties now, and you'll see some things about stormwater runoff and things like that. We're preserving properties like this for those reasons. Very big on fishing, hunting, and things like that down at deep properties like these, but also spills off to neighboring properties, because while they probably want to contain all the deer right on this property, they go to the neighboring properties, which they probably don't like, but other people like to hunt those deer too. So hunting being one of the big things in New York, and fishing, preserving properties like these has a big impact neighboring properties. Here's a nice view down in Glen Rock from the road. I like roadside views. People love driving by these. And if I'm from Chester County, any views like these are almost all gone. And you drive by them and say, man, it was so much prettier when it was that. And we like to preserve these some of the best soils in the US right here in York County as well. So preserving the views, preserving the agriculture, and they provide some stuff for Brown's Orchard. So if you go down there and buy corn, you might have gotten some of the corn right there. Hopefully not, because that picture was, I think, 2009. This is Dorothy Groff. She passed away about 2 years ago. Her family had farmed this property for, I forget how many years, but it was over 150. She wasn't able to have kids. Her dad passed away. She was left with a very aggressive family of cats, I might add. But this was kind of her wish to have this property preserved as her legacy. And that is one of the things that I like most, is working with these landowners who take such pride in their properties. That's the view from the side of her place. And that's right outside of the growth area of Hanover. So if you're down in Hanover and you're driving out, now we're kind of anchoring that growth area with these beautiful views. So, like I said, she passed away, and as soon as she signed the paper, she said, I wish I did this like 10 years ago. Here's another view, Overlook Drive. We have a ton of property that sits neighboring to the York Water Company, courtesy of the Kinsley family, almost 2,000 acres preserved. And they don't get much better than this view, I'll tell you that, because I drive by it almost every day. And if you drive down that way, go by Perrydale, Miller Plant Farm. We haven't preserved those yet, but if you know them, we would love to, because I'm willing to barter for ice cream. The vegetables too, but I love the ice cream too. This is right around Twin Arch Road, another property, I think about 400-acre farm that the Kinsleys purchased and preserved. So if Bob was here, he would tell you the importance of preservation along with development, which he could give a 3 or 4 hour presentation on it. So feel free to call him about that. How many of you know Warren and June Evans? They also passed away not long ago. If you tried to do anything in Helm Township, they would come and, watch your footprints past you. They were true environmentalists, and another one from the start, very involved with our organization, very involved with everything in Helm. And they both passed away not too long ago. But again, another great story. They own land that's been in their family forever, on the Helm Hills overlooking the Susquehanna River. So a benefit of the people on the Lancaster side is preserving their land. This was a nice complicated one that we did. The woman had passed away and left in her will that she wanted to preserve her property. 27 heirs to this property that we had to get signatures for. All of them were so happy to do it, and they had a big party afterwards when it was all signed off and done. I think that's about 90 acres down in Glen Rock, and it was sold. The family owns are really great people. I told them I had a picture of a barn for no reason other than there's a barn to keep my place. We don't preserve buildings, however, everybody loves looking at a barn, right? Right? This is Starview Sportsman Club up north. And we preserve a lot of clubs like this, and you might wonder why we offer to do it for places like this, but as we've seen, if you know, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts are starting to sell off land, and with an easement on it ahead of time, they're still able to transfer the property just as anybody else is. So if you own a piece of land that you preserve, you can then pass it to your children. It stays preserved. One of the stories we always hear, I want to preserve this so my kids don't screw up what I worked so hard on and what's been in my family forever. I'm not kidding, that's what we hear from a lot of people. A lot of kids are always attracted to homes, sometimes they're not, but you don't want to die and then have your kids put a housing development or something you didn't want there. So this is right bordering the Starview Place, Starview Sportsman Club. We have this on the Snyder Farm for ages. It's our Sasquatch Preservation Run. We hold this in the fall, so if you want to start training now, we start it with Cannonball Charlie from the Revs. And I think the first year we had about 350, so it's a nice fundraiser for us. We give everybody patches. We have people that collect all the patches. I think we just had our 8th year, so it's pretty fun. And no, I didn't model for that with a beard, if that's what you're thinking. I'm very insulted. This was a milestone in Farm and Natural Lands Trust history. Heirs from the Gladfelder Paper Company got together. There were 8 shareholders on this. It was called the Beefeater Farm, which they did say was somewhat gin-related too. And there's also rumors that there's money buried on the property as well, but it's directly across from the Gladfelder plant. They donated the property in full to our organization, which then we preserved and sold and started an endowment to the tune, I think we got around $600,000, which really for a small staff and a small organization went a long way. So that was about 7 or 8 years ago, and kind of a milestone for us. There's another view from it. We work with other nonprofits. We do this with the York Art Association, where artists will come and paint preserved properties, and then we put them up for sale. Some of you might own some. Really neat event. We do 30 to 40 pieces, and it's turned out really, we do it every few years. So as we add new lands, beautiful scenery and stuff like that. There's one you might know, a nice throwback from Fred Rosenmiller's youth there. Right, Fred? I don't know if you've seen that painting, hopefully you have. This is one of our board members on the left, Sarah Brown. Her and her husband bought this 65-acre property and preserved it and have poured everything they have into the property. And imagine spending tons of money on a house and then having kids and realizing you don't have enough room. So they're now building an addition on, but they preserved this property with us, and they're very proud. And that's a lot of our landowners have stories like this too, that pour their heart and soul into a property and then wanting to preserve it for the future too. Hey, so there's me with a beard. We had an event coming up called the Downtown Hoedown, live music, local food, things like that. We've been doing it for 10 years, so it's hard to believe we're coming up on our 10th year, and it grows every year. This is Spoutwood Farm. I know I've seen most of you at the Ferry Festival. We preserve that property too. So we required them a glitter cleanup before we would approach the property, because I have a fear of glitter too, but just kidding. They do a lot of stuff with the property. It's educational and things like that. So we can work with nonprofits and landowners as well. This is the North Muddy Fishing Club down there. Over a mile of stream frontage. We have dozens and dozens of miles of stream frontage, so it's very exciting for us to preserve properties like this. Here's a view of the Mom and Pa Railroad overlooking Muddy Creek. Great fly fishing down there, just don't trespass. This is the Appel Millbourne property, probably our most unique property in the, not all of them look like this. And here's another view. They don't all have castles and nice ponds and stuff, but we do have some unique easements. And like I said, Louis was one of our founders and one of my big cheerleaders and our organization's cheerleaders too. Patty Rooney's not here, but believe it or not, this is where Patty Rooney lives, and it's preserved as well. He lives up in Dillsburg, and we have preserved a lot of ground up in his area thanks to some of his outreach and things like that. He's planning to join our board next year, which we're really excited about. Here's one, a guy who gave us his application in 1992, and we finished his easement last year, which is hard to believe. Not our fault at all. He's just an interesting guy. But it was another one. He knew his clock was ticking, and he wanted to do this. He's a neighbor of Patty Rooney's, actually. He was a very interesting guy, but it's 185 acres, and it connects to a number of properties. We have contiguous up there over 1,200 acres, which is right next to the Warrington Club, which was preserved by our Gladfelder, and we do a clay shoot fundraiser up there as well. This is a Rickliff's farm done 2 years ago. Hidden Valley Ranch Road, not where they produce the ranch dressing. I was unfortunately found out, but borders some of Brown's Orchard's properties, and there's one of their horses overlooking Brown's. So it's kind of a crested property that you can see from Brown's, which is kind of important too, because when people come from out of town and want to buy produce, they want to be able to look to beautiful open space. One of our best ones was getting the County of York to put an easement on the Horn Farm on 30 as you drive in. Beautiful view of a farm. This is, a lot of it, the grounds are done by flinch balls, so if you go there and eat, that's where the produce is coming from. The Horn Farm is about 180 acres, a real milestone preservation job for us. There's me, there's my kids and my wife. This is on, when it was flooded, that gate was underwater a few weeks ago in July, so Hard to believe. So if you had flood control on your property, you can thank us. And as JT told you, I spent most of my time on a mower that Karen McCormick left me. She preserved the property, but that was a milestone for me. And we're along the rail trail, so we have so many miles of the rail trail preserved on either side, which is really rare for trails across the country, and will make us, long-term, that permanent preservation will make that rail trail a real attraction, which I can tell you it's used a lot now. Just stay off my driveway. And this was the last easement we did was at the Springfield Township Farmers and Sportsmen Association, which also has a little trail through it. They do a youth fishing derby, so we got a great picture of them. That was 180 acres of borders Nixon Park. So that was a real exciting one to do because we want to build those blocks of preserved land for things like fishing, for things like hunting. You know, we do them, the agricultural properties being the backbone of our economy too. We build those blocks and we want to preserve them. And you know, we're not an anti-development group by any means. It's just being smart about development, building in the right spots. This was our race 2 weeks ago, our Sasquatch run. I forgot we had these in. They had a creek crossing, and we had to have the race go off early because the creek was rising so quick, and there was water over a kid's head. He had to swim across. We did have a tow rope too. Like I said, we have an event called the Hoedown in November. We'd love to have you join us. Clay shoot coming up in November too. Come join us for that. And I'm going to give you an idea really quick of how easements work, because you might be thinking permanent preservation, what's that? So first off, it's voluntary. We don't do sales calls. We don't approach landowners. We send them a very general invitation to a meeting, and we do a presentation or word of mouth through another neighbor or something like that. And it's a deed restriction that carries with the property, limiting future subdivision and construction and protecting the environmental agricultural use of the property. The owner retains title. We have 11,000 acres. We don't own any of it. We just go out and do an inspection every year, pretty hands-off. Our goals and the landowner's goals are met in between, similar goals. And usually, we have 135 properties. We have very little issues at all with landowners because most of them are happy. And then the properties sell. Like I bought a preserved property, and you know, the people buying it love the property, not necessarily thinking, what can I build there? 10 acres or more in York County. We don't do property outside of York. We like to have forest management plans and soil conservation plans. That's another presentation. And how it works is, I like round numbers. 100 acres worth $1 million as is. You might have 10 building rights. You restrict it down to 2, let's say. Then it's worth $600,000. That $400,000 is a non-cash gift to a nonprofit, the Farm and Natural Lands Trust, that you can then use as your charitable gift deduction over, I think, a period of 18 years right now. So you can spread that over time. It's a lot of money. But if you have income, you can get that back year to year. And I think over the course of our, like I said, we have some county funding. We do pay a little bit. We're averaging under $250 an acre, and over the course of our 11,000 acres, we paid less than $30 an acre because most of them are donation based. So donated to the trust, donation spread over time, and I like to add in consult with an attorney or an accountant because I am neither. But we have plenty on our board, obviously, who are here too. So we worked with the Planning Commission to kind of strategize what we should do, preserving the best land. And we got some funding from the County of York and the York County Community Foundation's Agricultural Fund. We pay people of 25 acres or more, and obviously not preserving any others. But here's some of the unique things that we preserve: waterways, wetlands, ag soils, things like that, woodlands. This is, if you took a Jackson Pollock approach on the county, this is all the area that we want to preserve. Which is hard to believe, but if you go by color, there's certain areas that take priority. This is the South Branch of Gadoris area, and we have maps upon maps upon maps, which is a lot of fun. You can look parcel by parcel and find out anything. So I could look up your property and practically see in your windows. So, so over the course of this, we spent over $300,000 in total county funds. We've spent $1.3 million since I've started. Those funds have not been straight from the county. Right now we're getting funds from the Marcellus Shale funds. 16 properties in 10 townships, over 1,200 acres preserved, average property 75 acres, less than $250 per acre. And that's all in addition to our donated easements, but I'll tell you, in Chester County, they've seen properties $45,000 an acre just for the easement. So we're getting a real bargain. I think in Lancaster, they're averaging about $1,500. So I'm passing it over to JT because he's giving me the hook, and this is his cue. So take it away. Thanks for having me. Next time you see me, I'll have a beard, I promise.
Okay, so there's a reason I did that. 8 years ago, I joined Rotary. I've been a member of this Rotary Club for 8 years. The very first time you ever let me come to this podium was to introduce Sean, and at that time, Dave Davidson, on a Farm and Natural Lands Trust presentation. I didn't even know what the Farm and Natural Lands Trust was, but they allowed me to introduce the program, and I took a selfie on that. I was the first person to ever take a selfie. So I was. Prove me wrong. So as Sean may have mentioned, I've been president of the Farm and Natural Lands Trust, this august board, many of whom are here today, for about 3 years now. And I have truly accomplished more under my administration than any administration prior to or after me. That's not the reaction I expected. So to Nicholas and Amelia who are here today, I know you've got a lot of administrators from your school. That's why Sean was a little bit nervous up here today. His full board is here. You did okay. You did okay. I did ask Sean just for 1 minute, and just for one slide really. And it's that slide right there. It's the so what. So what about this Farm and Natural Lands Trust? Why does it matter? It matters because of trust. Farm and Natural Lands Trust. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I don't understand the legal implications of what it means to be a trust. But I do understand the word trust. And the Farm and Natural Lands Trust of York County believes in trust. We believe in the trust which is established between our organization and our mission to preserve property, to preserve this natural heritage, the trust between us and that property owner. That we're going to do what they need us to do to make them feel good about their intentions with their property. It's a very unique relationship. Somebody who is willing to deal with the Farm and Natural Lands Trust and say, we trust that you are going to meet our needs. It's a tough mission, but it's so important. And it is the legacy of our community. Now, I'm originally from Yonkers, New York. Okay? There aren't any farms in Yonkers, New York. And when I joined the Farm and Natural Lands Trust, I had a lot to learn. But what I've learned in 8 years is this legacy in our community, this legacy in our county, that we are indeed unique. And that we're indeed fortunate to have the Farm and Natural Lands Trust representing property owners and our community and our agricultural natural heritage. We're also very fortunate to have Sean and Rochelle, who couldn't be here, who lead our organization, a staff of two who do more to accomplish their objectives than a staff of 5 or 6 or 10 in other small organizations of the same ilk. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. It's about trust. It's about our heritage. It's about York County and what makes us unique. And with that, I'm going to blow past, I think there's a couple more slides. We're going to blow past those slides. And Brian, is it okay? Can we take a question? Is that okay? And I think Sean will take any question you may have because I am not qualified to take them. Yes, sir.
So, Sean, in October of last year, I too shaved a beard that I had for many, many years, and it was much to the dismay and chagrin of my wife. And I'm wondering how your
Okay. He asked a very beard-specific question, which was how my family reacted to me shaving my beard. Now, my beard has come and go. I've had beards longer than Silas's. And my wife's one rule is no mustaches because she says it changes my personality. But my son had a good answer when they asked my son Oscar, who's 3, what happened to your daddy's beard? He said, it's gone, it's on the floor. That's what he told him, because he was with me when I got it shaved off. My daughter wouldn't look at me for 2 days. She's 1.5, so good question though, good question. Any other beard questions?
I do actually have one. Earlier this year, the Rotary Club did have a presentation by somebody, I think from the Commonwealth, that is part of the government that tries to preserve land as well. And I'm wondering how the Natural Lands Trust relationship with and work from government agencies that try to preserve land.
Okay, like I said, we have the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources will actually go out and work with nonprofits to purchase land to open up to the public. There's the Lancaster County Conservancy, which does that the same. We appreciate their model. Ours is a little bit different. Our properties stay on the tax rolls, they stay in private ownership. As a staff of 2, we can't manage a 400-acre property. So we've kind of taken that route, although we haven't ruled it out. Then you have the York County Ag Land Preservation Board, which is a state-run county administrated program. They pay landowners from county funds and state funds. Their goal is keeping agriculture in economics, where we don't get involved in how much the property produces and things like that. We're a little hands-off regarding that. We're in a very open space in nature, so that's the difference. However, we've worked hand in hand on those properties with them. Sometimes, like our properties, if you take the 11,000 acres, is probably half agriculture, half wooded, and streams and things like that. Because that's how most properties in York County are that are farms. They have a lot of woods and things like that. So sometimes we'll take the forested portion, take that as a donated easement, and then the county will do the other portion. So we kind of complement each other in that way. So we don't work in competition with anyone. We're too small, kind of mom and pop to do that, but we do work kind of to complement others. So, Brian, question?